Hey guys, before we get started, just wanted to quickly announce that I have some new merch available for a limited time over at TetraBitGaming.com. If you're interested in supporting me and repping the slickest merch in the game, head on over to TetraBitGaming.com and use code SMB2 by December 12th to get a free sticker with the purchase of any shirt, hoodie, or hat. Anyways, onto the video. Hey guys, and welcome back to another Lost Bits video right here on TetraBitGaming, the series where we explore the scrapped, unused, and unseen content in video games. As pretty much everyone knows by now, the original Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo Entertainment System was a big hit in 1985 and has since gone on to be a classic. So of course Mario would need a sequel, or two, or 200. So in this video, let's have a look at both versions of Super Mario Bros. 2. That's right, there are two versions. Long story short, Nintendo of America deemed the actual Japanese sequel to be too difficult and too similar to the original game. So they decided it would be a better idea to slap some Mario characters onto another Japanese game, Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic, and call it a day. This version would go on to be known in Japan as Super Mario USA. Anyways, enough backstory, go grab some giant radishes, it's time to find some lost bits. So to start things off, let's have a look at the Japanese Super Mario Bros. 2, or as it's better known, Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, because quite frankly, it has a lot less unused content. Firstly, there are 3 unused graphics, 2 of which are unused ground tiles. Riveting, I know. The first looks very similar to the ground tiles that are used, and the other looks more similar to those seen in the first Super Mario Bros. Game. These tiles are actually seen in every screenshot in the manual for this game, so it's likely they were swapped out pretty late in the game's development. So one change in this game compared to its predecessor is that several objects were given eyes, for some reason. The mushrooms, clouds, bushes, and more were all given some eyes. Well, the last unused graphic is of another scrapped object that would stare at you as you play. This cactus sprite goes unused in the game. Perhaps the game was planned to have some sort of desert-themed levels at some point in which these chaps would be used. Sure would have been nice to see a different themed level in this game. The only other piece of unused content in this version of Super Mario Bros. 2 is the same variable that we saw that goes unused in my Lost Bits on the original Super Mario Bros. This variable keeps track of how many blocks are hit, but it is never called in the game. My theory is still that this was either an early way to keep track of the score when hitting blocks, or it might have been used to reward the player for breaking a certain amount of blocks per level, or something like that. Alright, and now onto the version of Super Mario Bros. 2 that most of us Westerners know it as. Holy fuck, that hurts the eyes. Before we get to the full game itself, there was actually a prototype cart of the game that was sold on eBay and has since been dumped. Thankfully, this prototype version also has several differences from the main game for us to go over. One of the biggest differences in this prototype is the inability to run. Yup, you can't run in this version, which not only makes the pace of the game feel much slower, but it's also a lot more difficult to make certain jumps. Another difference is that the lamp item, which was used in the original Doki Doki Panic game, is still used in this prototype. This was eventually changed to the Erlenmeyer Flask potion item seen in the final release to better match the theme of the game. One difference that I'm surprised was changed was that originally it looks like the game would let you change characters after losing a life. In the final release, you better choose your character wisely because you can't choose another one until you either beat the level or lose all of your lives. Thankfully, Nintendo smartened up and this was changed back in future remakes of the game. The sprites of our 4 protagonists were also slightly different in this prototype. Most notably, originally Mario, Luigi, and Peach didn't have any white coloring in their eyes. And Peach just looked downright evil. There are some other sprite changes like the removal of Toad's feet, but they are pretty minor. Another change can be seen at the end of the game. In the prototype, you are awarded a prize money amount depending on how many deaths you had on your journey. 10 million for less than 4 deaths, 1 million for 4 deaths, 500,000 for 5 to 9 deaths, 100,000 for 10 to 12 deaths, $50,000 for 13 to 18 deaths, and only $10,000 for 19 deaths or more. In the final release, this was changed to show how many levels were completed with each character. Other notable differences from the final release include some different menu color palettes, not having a preview of the world's 7 levels, a big upgrade to the bonus chance minigame, and a different end screen. As far as music goes, the prototype also had some differences. The first being the underground theme, which in this version is a slappin' remix of the one heard in the first Super Mario Bros. Game. As you heard, the drums are pretty loud, and this one is much more funky. Similarly, the invincibility music heard after collecting a star is slightly different. The theme itself is the same, but the percussion track is slightly altered. I'll play both of them back to back so you can hear the difference for yourself. The Super Mario 2 prototype also had some pretty heckin' nifty debugging features. First, just by pressing select, you instantly get 15 hit points, which makes the game an absolute breeze. As you can see, however, the counter wasn't made to handle this many hit points, so it glitches out and seems to change every time you get hit. Even if you somehow manage to get hit 14 times, you can just press select again and regain all of the hits you've lost. For the other feature, by pressing the A button a certain amount of times, you can instantly start off in a certain world. For example, press A 4 times and bam, you're on World 5. There's also no limit to the amount of times that you can press A either. Pressing it any more than 7 times will lead to various results. These results include lame stuff like instant game crashes or just loading the normal level, but it can also lead to, I guess, this game's version of the minus world, in which the graphics were either incorrect, inverted, or completely messed up. Or maybe they're not messed up, and Toad just really prides himself in his Hungarian heritage. Some of the glitch levels feel like the enemies have been sped up, and as a result, if more than like 2 things are on the screen at the same time, the game starts to really chug. Unfortunately, in some glitched levels, or at least the ones I played, if you do manage to beat a level, the next one will just load as normal. But either way, this debug mode is awesome and super fun to toy around with. Looking good, Luigi. And with the Super Mario Bros. 2 prototype done, let's now move on to the final release of the game. And first up again, we have some more unheard audio. So it turns out that the song that is heard when entering the subspace after throwing down a potion has a segment that is never normally heard. The full track is about 14 seconds long before the loop restarts, but since you are only able to stay in the subspace for about 7-ish seconds, basically the second half of the track is never heard. This is what the song sounds like in full. There is a way to glitch the game into playing the loop after leaving subspace, but the absolute easiest way to hear it in the game is to just use a Game Genie code, which lets you listen to it on the title screen. The other piece of normally unheard audio is a short, unused pre-death sound. And this is what it would have sounded like during normal gameplay with the normal death sound played right after. Super Mario Bros. 2 also has an unused text string that simply just says Zelda. Apparently, this was the result of some copy and pasting from The Legend of Zelda, and just forgetting to change the title. And lastly, Super Mario Bros. 2 also has some unused graphics that are left over in the game. The first set of these are several sprites that are left over from Doki Doki Panic. These leftovers are the magic lamp, which we discussed earlier, this heart, which was changed to be the extra HP mushrooms found in the subspace, and this lock and platform that were originally used in the ending of Doki Doki Panic. There is no equivalent for these last two in Super Mario Bros. 2, so as such they go completely unused. The next unused sprite is just a nice little happy face. Let's call this happy face BitBob. Probably the most simple and wholesome unused graphic that we've seen so far here on Lost Bits. Moving along, the final release of the game still has some leftover graphics meant for the prize money mechanic that we discussed that was unused in the prototype. Since it was in the prototype and is still left over in the files, I can only assume this change was made pretty late in the game's development. And lastly, several objects and enemies in the game have a unique, unused frame of animation that isn't seen elsewhere in the game. This includes the POW block, quicksand, waterfalls, and the albatross enemies. To exemplify this, here is a comparison of the POW block that is used with the missing frame compared with the full animation. As you can see, the full one looks smoother with the extra frame. Apparently, the missing frame is due to a bug, rather than the developers trying to save on memory space. And that concludes this Lost Bits video on Super Mario Bros. 2, and I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to let me know with a like down below, and also check out some more of my Lost Bits videos by clicking on the card right here. And if you would like to stay even more up to date with me and the channel, be sure to subscribe here, as well as swing by my other social media things, which will all be linked in the description below. But as always guys, thank you all so much for watching today and for all of your amazing support, and I will see you in a bit.